Men of War is such an interesting franchise to me. I think Assault Squad 2 has to be the peak, and it is still such an incredibly popular game. But because of Gates of Hell and some spin-offs that have come since, I think the standard has really raised up, and Call to Arms did a fantastic job with that. So when Men of War 2 had its playtest event, maybe it was last year, well, it wasn't exactly well received. I think if we actually go back to the Men of War 2 playtest, I think I actually did a video on it on my main channel. Yeah, here's my thoughts on the actual Men of War.
So it finally happened. The long-awaited Men of War 2 is now in early access playtest mode.
So here's the problem with a lot of this game. The way you can see, it looks incredibly arcadey. Because this used to be a game called Men of War Arena that was then changed into Men of War. Now, Men of War Arena was supposed to be, I guess, along the similar lines of like a Total War Arena, where it was a free-to-play, massively multiplayer sort of online version of what the previous games had. But that just wasn't Men of War, and it didn't really fit with the Men of War script. So when they changed Men of War Arena into a full-line Men of War game, well, we got this. It was horrific, by the way. Artillery would absolutely... Also, look. That's what it used to look like. March 2023. I'm getting sidelined. So there was a few good things about it. The destruction was nice, and it had all of those core bits of Men of War, but it just feels a little bit the same. It went from being kind of a gritty World War II RTS to, well, prepare to break the front line, time left, and having all this weird UI, this arcadey nature of it. And of course, artillery would just be able to absolutely pound anybody. Armor was incredibly powerful, and infantry was pretty useless most of the time. And it just didn't show what a lot of people wanted in Men of War. I mean, I've looked back at some of the old Reddit reviews here. Men of War 2, my first impression from one match. The units option bar is poorly indicated and does not function. Additionally, the game has issues in the damage model, unrealistic behavior of track and tank turrets when hit. Fog of War is excessively thick. Anyway, it's just bad. It's bad. The overall impression is not good, despite being a veteran of this series for 20 years. So this was a worry. And in fact, Men of War 2 was supposed to get a release date about last year, probably a year ago now, maybe closer to like 6-7 months ago, because they came to me and they said, it's releasing soon, can you do a sponsored video on it? And I was a bit unsure because I hadn't actually liked the public test that they did. But then I was kind of saved because they delayed it until now. Just the other day, we got a release date on Fulcrum Publishing, which are the guys that are publishing Men of War 2. It's coming on May the 15th, and it is supposedly completely reworked. They went away, they didn't say anything, and they've come back with, hopefully, something to honor the mainline Men of War series. And to start with, I think there is some hope here. I think what we have is a developer and a publisher that have seen what the feedback was from the player test environment, and they've come back with something completely different. Now, something that does worry me, actually, is this one screen, because this shows all-out warfare like that arcadey Men of War 2 player test that we got. But I do like the look of this stuff. I mean, we've still got the build instruction, that's all there. It's still bloody, it's still gory. Of course, you've still got infantry, tanks, armor, artillery, planes, that sort of thing. In fact, I think we get a shot of a plane here. Yeah, we can see planes overhead. Different types of tanks. It's all in there. But you know what I've just noticed? They've still got the planes that are flying low, which means they've still got artillery strikes. And artillery strikes were one of the most horrific things, well, in this overhaul. Now, I want to credit most of this information to Shermanator. He's a YouTuber. He's been covering the Men of War series for a long, long time. And what he's done is he's compiled a lot of the new changes and a lot of the new things coming within Men of War 2. The first thing is that artillery is completely being nerfed from that player test environment. It's not going to be completely overpowered. You're also not going to be able to pinpoint exact locations you want it. I'm hoping it's going to be a bit more like this, a bit more like Men of War Assault Squad 2, where you had to bring in physical artillery units and you couldn't just bombard artillery from off the map, which, you know, you could in Men of War 2's private test. There's been a few graphical changes and graphical updates as well, which is pretty nice. And of course, 64-bit support. Now there's extra things of voice lines, Steam Deck being added in, and mods. A bit of talk about mods, which is very exciting, since modding was a massive part of Men of War, and especially Assault Squad 2. Because, don't get me wrong, whilst it is my favourite in the series, it had its flaws. It really did have its issues. And things like the Rob's Realism mods kind of just tweaked things just to make it infinitely better. And that's what they need in a title like this. And it shows that they are focusing somewhat on community. Looking at some of, well, their announcements, they have brought forward some new updates. For example, good day, Commanders. We've been conducting our development mission under strict radio silence. And this goes into all the improvements and the enhancements that they've done whilst, well, they've not said anything. This is the artillery balance here. You've got saboteurs. Previously, sabotage squads had certain features during combat that some players might have considered unfair and appropriate. For example, you could basically just win a whole battle with them. For example, it was possible to take a rocket launcher and shoot it as if the suppressor were attached, making it a stealth weapon. So, I love how nonchalantly they put that in. Now, you won't be able to do that. Oh, well, brilliant. Moreover, using damaging anti-tank or anti-infantry grenades by such sneaky units will further reveal their position. There's some new unit abilities as well. Fixing and closing vulnerabilities in gameplay. During our last open beta test, our team noticed some vulnerabilities to exports in gameplay that could provide certain players with an unfair advantage. You could abandon the 41 rocket artillery after firing, and the equipment itself would disappear from view of other players. So essentially, you could fire huge rockets at the enemy. You could tell your lads to get off it, and then it would disappear off the map. So essentially, you could have, once again, stealth bombers, but within a World War II setting. There were a lot of issues like this, and it was one of the most unbalanced player tests, and there's no wonder why it was just so horrific. Also, they've now added in classic multiplayer, which baffles me, because when we got Men of War 2 and its private test, or I think it was a public test actually, last year, it was one game mode. It was like 4v4 or even 8v8, but it was just like a hectic war and everybody was going at each other. It was like that screenshot in the trailer. And I don't think many people liked it. So I'm glad they're bringing back 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, all that sort of thing. It would be nice for them to bring back most of Men of War Assault Squad 2, but just revamp it, update the graphics, because that's one thing that I have seen, is the fact that even on this release date trailer, it still looks like a 2014 game. I feel like Assault Squad 2 looked just as good as this. So I don't know exactly what they've done on this front. It feels like the Men of War series is lagging, well, specifically graphically, behind the rest of the games industry at this point, because it's kind of a confusing thing, because Men of War and the series in general has splintered apart into so many different pieces that actually trying to find where the original developers were is almost impossible. I think it was first published by Relic, the initial Men of War, and then you got, well, all the spin-offs that came with it. Then Men of War Assault Squad came out, which was slightly different developers. Then Assault Squad 2 came out, which was slightly different developers, and that was the most popular. Then I think some other developers came along and made Gates of Hell, which was another spin-off, and Call to Arms. And then Men of War 2, which is this one, which is like the 14th Men of War game, ironically, is supposedly the original people, but not the original team. It's just the original license for Men of War. So it's all a bit confusing. There's so much going on behind the scenes, and it's kind of splintered and fragmented the Men of War player base. Something that used to be such a popular RTS and something that people really held dear to them, especially alongside something like Company of Heroes. Men of War was the more gritty and realistic ones. And I think that was the problem with this player test that came like a year ago, and why the beta got such bad feedback. Because it wasn't that anymore. It wasn't a realistic game. It was just arcadey mush. But they have said, changes in the realistic battle settings, vulnerability of medium armor to high explosive fragmentation rounds. Armor plates 40 to 60mm thick have become less resistant to shockwaves. And in example, they've just changed around a lot of the armor settings, so it feels a little bit more realistic as well. In general, it looks like this is an improvement. I'm glad that they did the No Man's Sky thing, went silent, went away, changed things, and that's incredible. Now, it is coming out in April. No, it's not. It's coming out in May. It's coming out in 7 days. Oh my God, it's out next week, which I am excited about. I cannot wait to see how much it's changed, because I really did not like the beta. So hopefully there have been some significant changes. They've put in the work. They've made it a true sequel, a true Men of War sequel, and not just another spin-off. But I guess we're going to have to find out. Let me know what you think. I would love to see what your history is with the Men of War franchise. And are you looking forward to, well, the first true sequel that we've had since its inception back in, 2004, 2006? It's insane how old this franchise is. But yeah, I guess we've got to wait until the 10th of May. Hold on, was it the 10th? I guess we've got to wait until the 15th of May.